So if you're interested in all about the ingestion of essential oils, you're really going to love this video, this live. I have a very special guest. Her name is Jade Shutes. She's a aromatherapy practitioner, researcher, and educator of over 2 decades. She's also the founder, director of education, and an instructor at the School of Aromatic Studies. So welcome, Jade. How are you?
Thank you so much. I'm doing great today. We had lots of rain last night, so finally the garden is happy because it's been very dry, but I'm doing great. Yeah,
I love
thank
that.
you.
And you do distillation on your land as well, hey?
We do. Yep. In fact, surprisingly, yarrow, I think in the next week we'll be doing a yarrow distillation. So I know, I'm so excited.
That is so cool. Awesome. So I'm excited to start this interview all about ingestion of essential oils. So I'm just going to say to my guests, if anyone's live, feel free to ask any related questions to the internal usage of essential oils. We'll have a little question and answer period at the end, so I will see your questions after. And so yeah, Jade, tell us about your training, your approach in essential oils, and your school.
So thank you. Well, I was originally trained as an aromatherapist at the Raworth Institute of Natural Medicine, which is out of the UK. It's no longer there, but it was one of the first schools in England offering aromatherapy training. So my training included like massage, aromatherapy chemistry, applied kinesiology, reflexology, etc. And I practiced for a number of years through the massage, right? Like, so I would customize, I would do consultations, customize a blend and apply it via massage. And then over the years, over my career, because it's been like 30 years now, I've studied herbal medicine, French aromatherapy, which is more the internal or higher dilution application. And overall, I mean, I tend to get a lot of education. I'm just kind of an education junkie. So I like to get educated on as many subjects related to health as I can. So quite educated in the different approaches to aromatherapy, be it traditional kind of British aromatherapy to the French model, and then herbal medicine as well. I do own a school called the School for Aromatic Studies, and it is one of the first schools founded here in the United States and probably North America. I've been an educator, researcher, practitioner now for over 30 years, have written a few books, the most recent being on different carrier oils we use in aromatherapy. So,
I
yeah,
love
that's
that.
me.
Yeah. And the next one is, can you give us a quick overview of internal usage? A lot of people think it just means internally, like orally, but there's other things. Can you give us a quick overview?
Yep. So the internal use of essential oils, I do want to kind of, before I dive into that, just say the traditional model of aromatherapy adopted by kind of mostly North America and much of the world was based on the British model, which was this doing a consultation, customizing a blend, and applying it via either massage or like aesthetics, facial application. So internal use was kind of always left out. It was considered kind of outside the scope of practice for the traditional trained aromatherapist. And I believe it was really Kurt Schnaubelt who popularized in many ways the internal use of essential oils here in North America. So there are a number of different ways we can use essential oils internally. So we can take them orally, like in a capsule or on a sugar cube. We can use them via vaginal pessaries, rectal suppositories. Yeah, and then there's a variety of ways to use them internally. Gummies, aromatic kind of medicine balls, cough syrup. We can put them in tinctures like digestive bitters. Trying to think if there's one other way.
Honey.
And honey. Yep, and honey. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, and you talk about that in your courses as well, hey?
We do. We have a basic course on the internal use of essential oils, which is really focused on the oral. And our goal with that course was really to give a framework for so many, so many people are using essential oils internally. We wanted to provide a framework. Like, I was one of the first people in the United States to offer training on internal use. And it was probably, I began in, I think it was like 2015. Kathy Skipper and I did a course called French Aromatherapy. And my goal at the time was to bring more awareness of how we could safely and effectively, those words seem to be synonymous with aromatherapy these days, but utilize essential oils in all the ways that they can be used, right? So, and kind of break the barrier of the fear that seems to exist around internal use. And yeah, so, and it's gone well. People really appreciate the education on internal use. Like, people
Yeah.
wanna know. Yeah.
Yeah, I do too. I'm in one of your courses, so I'm
Yeah.
excited to open it up and see more. Next question, because I've had people tell me this, but I've learned it's not true from you. They say grass status is only for cooking. That's the only reason why it's grass status, and people say you're not supposed to use essential oils internally otherwise. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. So GRAS is related to the Food Additives Amendment, which was, I believe, 1958. However, um, dietary supplement companies like doTERRA, like Gaia Herbs, like Urban Moonshine, which does a lot of digestive bitters, Natural Standards has a number of different internal products containing essential oils. They use the GRAS status to show the safety of the use of essential oils in their products. So although GRAS is related to food additive safety, it's also used for dietary supplements, right? Um,
Mhm.
yeah. So, and we see essential oils in a lot of dietary supplements these days. And a lot of herbal tea companies are moving into adding essential oils into their tea blends. So, a lot of times, if you start looking at traditional medicinal teas or yogi teas, you'll start seeing that they're adding essential oil into the dried herbs so that they're in the tea itself. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And something we talked about off screen, and I kind of want to bring it up, is I've noticed that essential oils that don't have GRAS status are being used internally in France.
Yeah.
Can you use essential oils that don't have GRAS status internally?
Of course. So one example is cypress, Cupressus sempervirens. It is not on the GRAS list, but it can be used internally safely. The reason France, I mean, GRAS is relative to the United States, right? It's not something that's worldwide. Um, and a lot of the essential oils, even if they're not on the GRAS list, may have a similar chemistry as the essential oils on the GRAS list, right?
Mhm.
So, and we know that there's certain components that are kind of red flags, but for the most part, most components are quite safe to utilize internally. Yeah,
Okay. Thanks for clarifying that.
yeah,
Um, I guess we kind of touched on this a little bit. We did, but it's what are the ways of using essential oils internally that you teach in your programs? We've already touched
yeah.
on that. Hey.
Yeah. I mean, I can just say, the aromatic pastilles, which are like these medicine balls, gummies, cough syrup, cough drops, aromatic capsules. That's in our basic internal use class. And then in our aromatic medicine class, we go into vaginal pessaries, rectal suppositories, and a wider range of potential dilutions as you gain education in utilizing essential oils internally. Yeah.
Good. I like how you covered that so people, if they're thinking about programs.
Yeah.
Um, Next one, what are some safety considerations when taking essential oils internally? Is there such thing as too many drops? Do we consider drug interactions in pregnancy? Is it a no-go? Also with children, what can you share with us?
Yeah. So the generally accepted dosage, because in with internal use, we talk about dosage versus dilution, right? So dilution is like 2.5% dilution in 30 mils of some type of carrier, be it oil or cream or something like that. But when we're taking essential oils internally, we talk about dosage. And dosage is anywhere, like on a simplistic level, it's 1 to 3 drops, 1 to 3 times a day. And most essential oils fit fine in that category. There's not any one that I would say, well, even less than that because it's this oil. I mean, generally that's the standard dosage. And that works out on a technical level. 1 drop is equal to about 25 to 28 milligrams, right? So 25 to 28 milligrams. And we can actually go up to 25 to 75 milligrams 1 to 3 times a day.
Okay. And it's more like intentional, right? Like it's not like long term. That would be more of a short term thing. Is that correct?
Correct. I mean, that's a pretty low dilution. When I was writing the course or our course years ago, I did a lot of research into the, kind of the French approach or how medical doctors in France are using it, or not medical doctors, but aromatic medicine practitioners. And dosages can go really much higher than that. So this is, to me, this is kind of, the most you would want to do without any type of education. And you want to always make sure there's no contraindications. So as far as drug interactions, there's not a lot about this. There's a lot of speculation, but there's not a lot of factual information. And when I was researching in kind of French publications, they just were not finding that there was a lot of interactions happening with, in France, you can buy over-the-counter medicine. You can buy capsules, for digestive upsets or for insomnia. And so, it's I don't know how common, but it's fairly common compared to here for people to be taking over-the-counter medications that have essential oils in them. There are, of course, potential drug interactions which are known, like wintergreen, cinnamon bark, anise, anything that's trans-anethol rich should not be utilized internally if people are on anticoagulant medication or they have a bleeding disorder like hemophilia. So another one would be like cinnamon bark should be avoided if someone has is on diabetes medication. And then ginger and cinnamon bark typically should not be used internally if they have a duodenal ulcer. So those are some of the contraindications. As a practitioner, I'd really want to understand what medications each person is on, how much they're taking, and how I could complement if the internal use of essential oil seemed appropriate. Yeah. As far as pregnancy goes, in general, we tend to say don't use essential oils internally during pregnancy. But, all of us are consuming essential oils all day long in the different food products that we're eating, sodas that we're drinking. Do you know that a lot of the kind of GRAS limitations come in to play, because it's the small amount is all you need to flavor something, but also it takes into consideration all the products a person might potentially eat in one day, and therefore how much essential oil or a particular chemical family they may be consuming. So, and also during pregnancy, it's not like you go and you buy a candy cane and the candy cane doesn't say, don't eat me if you're pregnant, so even like something simple like that. I mean, so we can't tend to get too outraged when people do use essential oils internally during pregnancy, because the candy cane's like a perfect example. I mean, I never see any warning on a candy cane. And if you're like me, I eat like 5 candy canes all at once, so it's like a lot of peppermint.
That's like me too.
So but it is best, unless you're working with a practitioner, simply to avoid the internal use of essential oils during pregnancy and during lactation. However, with children, and I'm going to pull up it is safe to use essential oils with children. And it really depends, like, kind of stepping back for a moment before we get into children. With any of us, like adults, children, the elderly, the most important thing to me when it comes to utilizing essential oils in any form is having a relationship with each of the essential oils that you are going to be using, be it on your skin or internally. And then beyond that relationship with the actual essential oils is having a relationship with your own body and an understanding of your own health, right? Kurt Schnaubelt really highlighted this, and I can't remember which book it was, but he said, sometimes the most important thing before utilizing essential oils internally is to make sure you have a relationship, right? You want to know that essential oil. You don't want to just be like, oh, I bought an essential oil, now I'm taking it internally. So relationship is really important. And I know, being a mom, I raised my son on essential oils, hydrosols, and herbal remedies. It's like you have to observe the constitution of the child that you are working with, but they can be used internally. In fact, in France, and I didn't do this with my son. I did do rectal thermometer a couple of times, but the most common form of application in France for children, even infants, is actually through rectal suppositories at very low dilutions. So again, that takes a little bit of training. So I would say, just for our conversation, for children 5 and above, it would be safe to use essential oils internally for specific reasons, right? Where there's a digestive upset, poor gut flora, you can use essential oils. You can even put them in like probiotics, excess gas, a stomach ache, digestive spasm. And the typical dilution is very similar, where we're using, or dosage rather, is 1 to 3 drops up to 4 times a day. Again, that's still considered a low dilution relative to, high dilution, say for something like an acute condition. So why we would want to use them with infants or young children, we also need to understand, is this the best method? Is this the best method to deal with what is happening, to help relieve digestive spasms or excess gas? It's so much easier actually just to apply the essential oils like a 1-to-1, like 1 drop fennel to 1 drop carrier, and rub it on the stomach than internal use. So, but for older kids, say 5 and above, if they can eat capsules or drink, swallow capsules, that might be a great way to use them for kids, or on a sugar cube. Or I know with my son, when he was younger, probably about 6 or 7, I would put like a drop of lavender and a teaspoon of honey and stir it up. And that was easy, because honey, I mean, most people like sweet. So sweet and honey, they go together, and it makes it easier to take the essential oil internally. Honey also has its own kind of therapeutic properties, like it's antimicrobial. It's like a humectant, so it's moistening to the tissues, like if you have a dry throat and you take cypress internally. Trying to think of what else. I mean, I do think if you're going to utilize essential oils internally with kids, that you need to have an understanding of the essential oils that you're using, and also the kid's constitution and familiarity with essential oils. and if
Mhm.
it's the best method. But I do think they can be used even for emotional issues, just feelings of frustration or irritability. um, Capsule, like putting 1 drop of essential oil in a carrier, like calendula would be a nice oil to do this with, 1 or 2 drops of lavender or cardamom or Roman chamomile to calm the nervous system. You could put it in honey. You could put it on a sugar cube. Just easy ways to, use them for
Yeah.
kids.
And I like what you said, like honey really sweetens things up. Like one thing I like for digestive when I really have bad issues that even topical usage doesn't help, there's this blend I have with fennel. So then that fennel with the honey is like perfect.
Yeah, right? It
Yeah.
is. It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
also liked how you mentioned with the kids, when you're using it internally, it's for a specific purpose. Because I see a lot of people that will just give their kids essential oils internally daily for no reason. That's when I'm kind of like, I'm not sure what I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, we are all taking in some essential oil each day through our food. Um, and so, or let's say digestive bitters. If you take digestive bitters, say like a company like Urban Moonshine, they have essential oils in all of their digestive bitters. So you would use digestive bitters pretty much every day. I mean, often most people don't, right? They'll forget a day or take a day off um, but taking it every day, I'm kind of forming my opinion as well. Taking it every day for no purpose, I I wouldn't be able to justify. Yeah,
Yeah. Would
I'm
you say
with
that
you.
even for adults and kids alike?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. We kind of started answering that question, so I put it on the screen. So next, why aromatic honey? Why is aromatic honey special?
I mean, like I said, just honey has antimicrobial kind of moistening properties. So other than that, there's no particular reason. It's just easy, sweet, easy to take. We're not big, in many European countries with tea, they'll have those sugar cubes, right? So, and that, so in France, I would say, because that's what I'm familiar with, you could just put a drop or two on the sugar cube and take that, right? So honey's just another way of using something sweet, that's easy for people to take internally. Yeah.
I've even heard, I don't know if you can confirm or deny it. I've heard that because sorry, when essential oils are mixed with honey, it does something to help your body like accept it more. I can't remember what the proper English word is,
It's,
but
like a driver into the tissues, is that it could be. Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
And another question is, when you mix essential oil with honey, does it like mix just like it would a carrier oil, or is it not exactly the same?
Well, honey's water soluble, so
Mm,
but I have found, yeah, pretty much the honey's thick, so it kinda coats the essential oil. Yeah, yeah. It's not quite
okay.
the same as putting it in water, but honey is water soluble. Um So yeah, it holds it. It's not a solubilizer. It's not gonna solubilize. If you put the honey in water, it'll separate out.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. So now we're going to talk about cooking. What are your thoughts on, because I get a lot of opinions on this and I don't know, I think maybe it's subjective, maybe it's not, but what are your thoughts on possible drug interactions when cooking with essential oils? So if you cook with essential oils, should you worry about drug interactions?
I wouldn't.
You you
No.
wouldn't?
No, again, usually when you're cooking, you're replacing the herb you would typically use in that recipe, whether it's cardamom or dill or fennel or black pepper or ginger. So you're replacing the plant material with the essential oil. And you typically only need anywhere from 1 to 3 drops, right? That's going to be enough to flavor the food, give it that aromatics. Um, and when you're cooking, it's also exposed to heat, which means some of it's going to volatilize off. So I wouldn't think that there's any concern with any type of contraindication. Again, we don't think that way when we're cooking, when we throw black pepper or, make a stir fry and add ginger, or if we're using cardamom in our coffee, we just don't think about drug interactions, right? Usually drug interactions are going to come into play when you're taking a larger dosage over a certain period of time. Like even just, like taking bitters every day that have essential oils in them. Is there cause for concern? I would say not, because it's going to be a really low dose. So yeah, the concern for meds and, North America, and particularly people in the United States, they can be on multiple meds, right? Like multiple meds at the same time. And so I guess, just to be aware, and before you take essential oils internally, to see if there are any potential contraindications, it's just wise to know, like, what am I taking internally? And is there a potential contraindication based on the meds I'm on?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And for me, when I've cooked with essential oils, I've always diluted it in a carrier oil. When you do it, how do you do it? Like, sorry, olive oil for me. That's what I normally
I
do.
don't cook with them. I mean, I would use the plant material. I'm not. I usually have fresh ginger or like thyme, or I have quite a large garden, so I'll just go out and parsley, or and if I don't, I've just not, I'm not I don't cook with essential oils.
Okay, that's good to know. And plants have different things that essential oils don't provide as well in terms of nutrients and stuff like that.
Absolutely. But a lot of it has to do with the volatile components, right? It's what gives it flavor. It gives it the aromatics. Yeah. Yeah.
And next one, still on cooking. Are there any dilution rates for cooking that you suggest or use? I guess you don't use.
Yeah. No,
So,
but I have had been in conversation about this topic. Again, you could put it in a carrier and then put it into, and then yes. So, but for one meal, like for a family, 1 to 2 drops in whatever you're cooking should be sufficient, right? So again, with cooking, I don't think of it as dilution so much as how much do I need to obtain the results I'm looking for. At that point, you're not using the essential oils. Well, I mean, you might be like, if you're making a dish and you put fennel, it could be because the fennel is going to help the digestive processes as you eat your dinner. But I think more just, what are the drops? I mean, maybe up to 3, maybe up to 4. It's like, it's still quite low given the little amount that you need to flavor the food you're making. Yeah.
I like how you said that. Next question is a question that my friend asked me, and it was, can essential oils be used for parasites? I think she means like internal, like intestinal parasites.
Absolutely. There's like whole programs around treating intestinal parasites. So, and there's quite a lot of essential oils one could use, from tea tree, even lavender. Um, that might be where you go up a little bit higher of a dosage. So from 1 to 3 drops to 2 to 6 drops over a specific period of time. I do recommend, if you're working with intestinal parasites, usually it's a 1-month program. It's like you start off with 1 to 3 drops of the synergy you've created specific to parasites in capsules, gel, like a capsule with carrier oil. Then you go up the next week to the higher dosage, 2 to 6 drops. Then you do that the third week, and then the fourth week you go to the 1 to 3 drops. So you kind of like low, high, high, low, right?
Okay. And then you do it up to 4 times a day. Is that what it is?
Yep, 1 to 3 times a day. Actually, if you're working specifically with parasites, I would say 3 times a day.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm so like fascinated by all this.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was really interested to hear you say tea tree. Is that internally?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, 'cause I know some
Do-
people are, I hear mixed reviews about tea tree and internal usage.
Yeah. Well, if you can get a good one, and let me just look to see if there's any contraindications here for tea tree. But tea tree, I mean, it's so antimicrobial. It would help with the microbes. So I don't see any negative note with tea tree. Yeah.
Okay. So like you can do like lavender and tea
I mean,
tree.
do what you're comfortable with. What I sense is that there's a little bit of fear, right? Of and that fear comes from the industry kind of don't use essential oils internally. The fear comes from really overhyped safety information that yeah, just puts a lot more fear into people versus relationship. Do you know, I remember when I first made my first rectal suppositories for a lower respiratory tract infection. I had bronchitis and with infection. And, Kurt Schnaubauer, it's like he's been teaching and sharing simple ways to utilize essential oils internally. And he's kind of like, he's not within the industry itself. He stayed on kind of on the outside because he didn't agree with a lot of the industry kind of boxed in don'ts, do nots, and overhyped safety information. So he believed in relationship and using them and witnessing their amazing therapeutic benefits. So it was, I was a British trained aromatherapist, so I was trained not to use essential oils internally. And so this was a long time ago, probably 15, 20 years ago when I had this bronchitis. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to use Kurt Schnaubauer's rectal suppository recipe for my bronchitis. And within like 24 hours, it was amazing. This green sputum I'd had disappeared. I could literally feel my lungs healing. So I became a bit of a suppository like fanatic, like just because they're so incredibly effective. I went through a NAHA conference that I put on at Bastyr University. Again, I had a respiratory infection and I was using suppositories the whole conference. Granted, at that conference, we were also introducing that kind of the idea of internal use, just to have aromatherapists become more familiar and less afraid of that they're not going to kill you. I wish people would be more paranoid about every piece of food we put into our mouth and what it might contain, or the incredible overuse of corn syrup from God knows where, like Monsanto crops, or the plastic that's in our food and our water. I mean, that is far more health damaging than trying essential oils internally and seeing if they work,
Mhm.
right? I mean, it's almost like there's this fear that you do it and it's going to kill you. It's just not how essential oils work, and yeah, I see daily. I mean, people are willing to pop meds that have a lot of damage, to the body. Um, and we just don't hype that as much as this paranoia of that essential oils are so dangerous if they're taken internally. I mean, I've given talks on the internal use of essential oils and gone through all the companies that have essential oils in their supplements. And then I'll see one of the owners like at a herbal conference or something, and they'll be like, we had these aromatherapists call us and like, basically, how dare you add essential oils into your product? I mean, it just is irrational. Do you know, it really is. Essential oils and hydrosols have been used in various forms of medicine since, the history of medicine. You can look at pharmacopoeias from all over the world, France, the United States, England, like the British pharmacopoeia. And they all contain, and it's usually in drops, like 1 to 3
Mhm.
drops for digestive upset. Do you know? So there is a historical use of essential oils internally as medicine.
Mm.
Sorry, did I
And
go off there? It's
no, that's
just,
good. I'm like captivated, so keep going.
yeah, yeah. It's just always like, kind of blows my mind that there's such resistance. I have this quote actually. Let me pull it up really quick.
I think I know
From
which one it is.
Yeah, from well,
Yeah.
there's 2. So there's from Kurt Schnaubauer. He says, "Ingesting essential oils is a topic at the center of one of aromatherapy's culture wars." And the reason for this culture war is simply a misunderstanding of the origins of the British model, right? And the British model, it's not wrong to say internal use is outside the scope of practice. It's the same as like massage therapist here in the United States. Internal use is outside the scope of practice when you're doing a hands-on modality. But we've really kind of moved aromatherapy out of massage. I mean, it's still there, but over the years, a whole new practice of aromatherapy has emerged, and that's without massage and using essential oils and all the many, diverse methods of application to support our health as well as to treat health imbalances. And
Mm.
then, Rhiannon Lewis, who is quite well known in the industry, she says it's an uphill struggle, even within the aromatherapy profession, to obtain even the smallest level of acceptance that the oral use of essential oils is sometimes the best route to use. And that's the truth. Smelling an essential oil isn't going to help your blood circulation. Putting an essential oil on your skin isn't going to help intestinal parasites, right? So that there is a time when internal use is incredibly valuable.
Yeah, I agree. I think of even when I have digestive discomfort, sometimes topical is fine, but there's been times where I was like, topical just doesn't even touch it. And then
Yeah,
when I do internally, it's like within like sometimes minutes or hours, it's like, oh, it's done. I've been suffering all day.
exactly, exactly. So I hope that was helpful. I don't
Yeah.
judge people who are against internal use, but I think there should be a greater understanding that this isn't new, that it's not just grass status, and that, like I say so often, it's about having a relationship with the oils and feeling confident, in using them. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's why I invited you too, because I'm like, it's so taboo. I think internal usage in general is so taboo that we don't talk about it. I'm like, we need to talk. I'm like, I need to invite Jade on. We need to talk
Yeah.
about this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Something you talked about was rectal pessaries. Well, how would you say, what would be the benefits of that versus oral usage? Like I know for lower respiratory tract infections, like pessaries are, really great, but what are other kind of like
Yeah.
reasons why a person would do?
So rectal suppositories, they can be useful for things like hemorrhoids, rectal fissures, to help the tissue both internally in the rectum itself and then externally as well. Any type of systemic infection, rectal suppositories can be beneficial, and even some digestive disorders can be treated through the suppositories. I'm trying to think of what else. Um, I remember years ago, Rhiannon Lewis came out with like this rectal suppository for anti-infectious. Kurt Schnaubauer also has a recipe in one of his books for anti-infectious. So in the winter months, I don't know about COVID, so I'm not going to touch that, but just to support the immune system and, be more preventative to like the flu or common colds and whatnot happens in the winter months, you can make an anti-infectious rectal suppository to help overall immunity. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when you talked about anal fissures, would that be also helpful for like post-pregnancy tears?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if, let's say, like fennel's apparently not good for women who are like breastfeeding,
Yeah.
would it not be an issue because it's not, it's like in your
I mean,
practice?
rectal suppositories, the reason we use them, particularly for lower respiratory infections, is because they bypass the liver and they have very quick blood uptake. So, I mean, having had terrible hemorrhoids after I gave birth, because I pushed for like way more than 3 hours, I would say hydrosols are really effective, or sitz baths with essential oils like cypress. And again, you're not doing it for like very long, right? I mean, it's usually like within 3 to 4 days, you're going to have a real big healing of the hemorrhoid, the tissue of the rectum. So, it's a very short period of time. I would say if you are breastfeeding, probably better to utilize hydrosols. Um, or if you don't have hydrosols, but you have like cypress and geranium, you could use that for 3 to 4 days would be fine. Yeah,
Okay. All
yeah,
right.
yeah.
And I see there's some questions in the comments. I'll answer them at the end.
Okay.
Um, to refine my questions.
I hope we're going to get
Okay,
into Copaiba.
that's the next one. Yeah. So Cobaiba, I'm here. I've heard kind of that it shouldn't be internally. I've seen that it can. Can Cobaiba be used internally or
It can
orally?
be used internally, orally, or any other route. Um, it has no components in it that are a cause for concern, and its main component is beta caryophyllene, right, which is gained in popularity because it is one of the terpenes found in cannabis. And beta caryophyllene, so it makes up about 50 to 62 plus percent of copaiba. So it would have, just with that component alone, it offers kind of anti-inflammatory, gastroprotective, anti-carcinogenic, antifungal, antibacterial. I'm looking just at my long list: antidepressant, anti-proliferative, which is anti-carcinogenic, antioxidant, anxiolytic, to help relieve anxiety, and neuroprotective properties. So, people take CBD, they take other cannabis products internally. I'm trying to think of, or tinctures, or yes, either CBD or cannabis itself. And so they're already consuming beta caryophyllene. So absolutely copaiba could be used internally, and absolutely it could potentially be very effective at relieving anxiety or feelings of being overwhelmed. And so again, with any oral use, you can make your own capsules. Oh, I'm gonna send you the capsules I recommend, because a lot of times with those gel capsules you buy in the store, um, they can fall apart if over a short period of time, or become really greasy and oily. Um, so there are better capsules, but if that's all you have access to, that's what you can use. Make your capsule, put a little vegetable oil, 1 to 2 drops of copaiba, close it up, take it internally. Or copaiba is fine on a little sugar cube or in a teaspoon of honey. So absolutely. There would be no I'm looking at its chemistry one last time. No
Mhm.
contraindications based upon its core components.
Yeah, and you kind of touched on the next question, but you said you can do like 1 to 2 drops in a capsule, which
Yeah.
I'll link the capsule down below after you share that with me so my viewers
Yeah.
can see what it is.
Yeah.
Would that be like once a day, 2 times a day,
I would say one or
when
two
needed?
times a day. I do have a dietary supplement that's made, can't remember the name of the company right now. It's the president of Naha's company. Um, It's called Alpha Calm, and it has lavender and bergamot and a couple of other different essential oils. It smells amazing. I'll take like 1 or 2 of those a day when I'm like kind of feeling really stressed out. Um, so yeah, 1 to 2, 3. I mean, again, it's how are you feeling, right? You took one, how are you feeling? if later in the day you start getting nervous or anxious again, take another. Do you know? I mean, obviously, beyond the anxiety, like what's causing the anxiety, is there anything you can do to address the whatever's the trigger is, right? I mean, I
Mhm.
know myself, I'm just an anxious person. It's my nature. I suffer
Mhm.
terribly from anxiety.
Me too. Me too.
Like, and
Yeah.
sometimes it's really bad, and that's when I'm like the alpha calm. You know, I could make my own, but I like this particular product. So I'll take the alpha calm and it's really helpful, or I'll take tinctures. I'll put a drop of lavender in it. I haven't personally tried copaiba, but yeah, it's like super safe and could be really helpful. It's got that beta caryophyllene, which does have the ability to relieve anxiety. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah,
Yeah, and it comes back to what you said about relationship with your body. Like if you feel like you
yeah,
need it, you need it. If you don't need, another one, you don't need it.
yeah. I mean, I'm
Um,
not one just to start popping pills or tinctures just because, right?
yeah.
I'm usually like, I do certain things every single day, like with tinctures, but yeah, it's like, I know that it helps me in this way, or I take digestive bitters because of this. Do you know? It's usually, yeah.
Mhm. And next one is a practical question I got a few weeks ago, and I was like, I'm going to ask Jade. It might be a little repetitive, but how much essential oils do you take internally? What for and how? So, what can it be used for? How do you do it?
Yeah. So you can take, do you know, how, do, I'm sorry, I want to look at your question again. How much essential oil do you take internally? It, it, the question sounds like a little bit different from what is the dosage, right? So we've covered dosage 1 to 3 drops, 2 to 3 times a day. Um, Would I take multiple capsules containing different essential oils throughout the day? Probably not. Do you know, I would probably limit it to one remedy for the day with that dosage. Because I feel like, that the question is kind of also moving into this, like, would I be taking like 3 or 4 different types of capsules, like one for my anxiety, one for irritable bowel, one for, the infection. I wouldn't pile them up that way. So I might do digestive and anxiety all within the same capsule. So to have lavender or coriander seed with fennel, and take that. So I'm hitting 2 birds with one stone, so to speak. I'm addressing my anxiety, but also supporting digestive functioning. Yeah.
Which kind of
Yeah.
brings me to another question. I used to be with a company that had like supplements with essential oils in it. So I'd say with the daily supplement, I'd probably be getting 4 to 8 drops of essential oil already. Would would this be considered piling if I started taking essential oils internally for something else, or would I take a break from my supplements?
I personally would probably take a break from my supplements to address an issue I'm trying to address. Because normally, when you're addressing a specific issue, you're going to be on the remedy for anywhere from 1 to 4 weeks, depending on what it is you're working with. Yeah.
Mm,
And then you could go back on to the supplements. Do you know, supplements containing essential oils are like herbal medicine. One of the recommendations is we take them for 5 days, take 2 days off, take them for 5 days, take 2 days off, rather than taking them 7 days, 365 days out of the year. So
mm,
just gives the time for the body to kind of the liver to detox, quote unquote, and to give it a rest and metabolize and clear out. And then we resume our remedies. Yeah.
mhm. I like that. Ah, you're so knowledgeable. I'm so happy
Yeah.
we're doing this. I think so many people watching this are going to be so like blessed and like really
Yeah.
like get so much from this. Okay,
Thank you.
when is internal usage of essential oils not recommended? So when would you say don't do it?
Right. So it's not necessarily when not to do it, because when not to do it also depends on which essential oils you're going to be using. I think the big do not is really during pregnancy. And it's only because during pregnancy, we have this overabundance of caution, you know? So it's not that it's dangerous per se. Like, it wouldn't be dangerous to take lavender. There's like, even here in the United States, I believe in Canada as well, there's the lavender capsules, over the counter medicine for insomnia. So somebody could take that. It's not going to present any issue during pregnancy, but it's like, it's just to be very safe. Yeah.
Mm, okay.
Yeah. Again, I wish they would place a lot of emphasis on the food you're eating as well during pregnancy, which can create just as many problems, if not more.
And my next question, it's kind of a surprise question, but when I have an essential oil, a few essential oil bottles from my company that says not for ingestion, would you take it literally and just say, no, I would never ingest that brand? Or what's your thoughts on
Nope.
that?
So, many aromatherapy companies comply with the American Products and Herbal Association guidelines for essential oils. And this is just labeling essential oil bottles. The same in England, they'll put do not use internally or not for ingestion. And that's because of the insurance and the liability associated with that, or or even in, let's say, England, that the essential oils have to go through different channels to be dietary supplements. So most of the essential oils I use internally say not for internal use, because that is what the company has decided. They're either going to follow kind of the cosmetic realm, or the AHPA guidelines for retail of essential oils, or they're going to follow the Dietary Supplement Act, which then they could put it for internal use. So here, each country is going to be a little bit different as to why that company puts not for internal use, based on that country's guidelines for dietary supplements. But here in North America, and particularly in the United States, a dietary supplement, a substance being used internally, goes through a lot more channels, right? Like, it has to be registered as a dietary supplement company. They have to keep a lot more records on authenticity of the ingredients that are used in that supplement. And it's just, most aromatherapy companies don't want to deal with that. It's very expensive. So they'll put not for internal use. So they fall more under kind of the cosmetic field, where it can be used externally. But it doesn't mean their oils aren't as good as those who are using them as dietary supplements, right? So it just means they haven't filed as a company, as a dietary supplement company. Yeah.
Okay,
And
interesting.
that's all I know. I hear that too. Well, it says it's not for internal use, so it can't really be very good. And it's like, oh no, it's just the labeling law they've decided to ascribe to for their company, for their business. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think sometimes they actually are fake. So it's just
Oh, for
not all
sure.
essential oils are real, but yeah,
For
it
sure.
kind of,
I mean, there's definitely lines out there I would not use internally.
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
so yeah.
Mm. Can I ask which lines you'd be open to internally?
Which what?
Can I ask publicly which essential oil lines you're with? Well, sorry, which
Yeah,
brand names
well,
you're comfortable
I
with?
mean, the big one is Original Swiss Aromatics, which is owned by Kurt Schnaubauer. My philosophy is he's using these internally, his wife, his children, who are now much older. Um, and so I just have faith that, I know that he's putting out a quality line. Others, I mean, Florhana is a great line out of France. Prana Rome has been entering into the North American market, and Prana Rome is the main line that's sold in France in the pharmacies, right? So their essential oils are most commonly used in the OTC products in France.
Okay.
So Pronarome would be another one. And, the MLMs, doTERRA and Young Living, they both have dietary supplements. So again, they have to follow certain authenticity requirements, GCMS, showing this is lavandula, this is its chemistry. So I would think that they would only put safe products onto the market.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Next up. So just to talk about a scenario I've seen a person ingest a solid like 8 to 12 drops in an essential oil, like of essential oil in like a 10, 20-minute live. What are your thoughts on this for those who have seen this or maybe are doing this and they want to know what you think?
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot of essential oil. And I always go like, why? I mean, again, sometimes people think, oh, well, I'm doing it for the antioxidant effects. But I'm like, okay, well, better to eat, have some strawberries, have some blueberries, eat a salad. You're going to get your antioxidants from that. That's a high dilution or dosage rather. So 8 to 12 drops. I would say, why? 2 to 3 might be fine. Why go up so high? So I think it's unnecessary, and there's no context, right? Like, what is the context of their using it? Is it, I have irritable bowel, or I have some digestive upsets right now, I'm working with this, or, it just, there has to be a framework, a reason why. And then another thing that brings up is sometimes you'll see people do it right from the bottle, right? Like they'll
Yes.
just put, and so I always share this story. Years ago, I was at an aesthetic school. I was teaching a class that day, and I was in my car, and I thought, oh, I want to freshen up my breath. So I had peppermint, and I just like get that, put the bottle right to my mouth. And it took my breath away. I actually thought I was going to like suffocate. And so it was that immediate menthol that made it difficult for me to breathe. So I was like swallowing. I mean, I started going into my anxiety attack, like, oh my God, I think I've killed myself. And then I just swallowed, like, and then tried, and then I was able to breathe. And I mean, in those moments, it feels like it's, lasting forever. It was probably like 2 seconds. So, you can't really control the drops you're getting when you put an essential oil bottle right to your mouth, unless you're like in the mirror. So I always think if you're going to do it that way, because there is some context like doing essential oils sublingually, like putting them under your tongue. So you could put one drop, I would recommend using a pipette, like one drop of lavender under the tongue to relieve and soothe and calm the nervous system. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
And I've talked to someone who has been in your program with Kathy Skipper,
Yeah.
and she had said, I think she'd said, correct me if I'm wrong, but when you did like sublingual, a lot of times it was at like a 1% dilution rate. Is that correct?
Yeah, in the course itself, you can dilute it. A lot of times it's not a 1% dilution, it's a 1-to-1. So it's
Okay.
like 1 drop carrier to 1 drop essential oil. But it's also is a place you can put 1 drop of a non-mucous membrane irritating essential oil just right under the tongue, right? It's like,
Mm.
it's a pretty quick absorption.
And why sublingual? Tell us more why.
Sublingual is a really quick, I want to get my list of why we would want to use them up sublingually, but it's a great way emotionally, like the anxiety, to help relieve anxiety. What else? I would say mostly on the psychological level, sublingually. It does have quick blood uptake as well because you have good absorption under the roof, under your tongue. Yeah. I wouldn't try
Does
and treat intestinal parasites sublingually. Let me see what else I have for sublingual.
does it bypass the liver?
It does sublingually, it does. So So rectal suppositories are typically used for lower respiratory, right? When you have like uh, something's going on in the lungs. Sublingual application could be used when you have upper respiratory issues. So like a sinus infection or just congestion. Let me see what else. The energetic immunity to support the immune response, and then emotional, like anxiety, worry, insomnia.
Nice. Yeah. And something we never mentioned, but I think we kind of implied, not all essential oils are okay internally. Just for those
Yeah,
watching.
like wintergreen, birch. I mean, they're just not commonly used internally. I mean, I say that, but then you say, oh, well, birch has been used as a flavoring ingredient in root beer, which is true. Um, but those carry more risk. I'm trying to think of other ones. Like, I'm not a big proponent of oregano essential oil internally unless it's encapsulated properly, which is usually, this brings up a point, like some like peppermint essential oil can, for some people can cause a little reflux. And for it to work, I think in the best way that it can work, it's better that it's in an enteric coated capsule. So it breaks down in the small intestine rather than in the stomach. So there are at times remedies where it's better to have an enteric, and you can do this at home, but it's very challenging. So better just to buy, a remedy that's aimed towards that.
Mhm.
Um, Trying to think of other oils, and oregano is good for onset, right? When someone's starting to feel ill, having oregano internally, you could make your own capsules. That would be one I would not put on a sugar cube, just because it
Oh, yeah.
could really irritate the mucous membranes. Trying to think of other ones.
And oregano, is it only short term for
And
oregano?
oregano tends to be short term.
Like
Yep,
7 to 10 days or something like that?
yep, 7 to 10 days. There is there's a product on the market called Gut Flora. It is by MediHerb, and it's carried by Natural Standards, which is a pretty well-known and respected company. And their Gut Flora, so it helps support intestinal flora balance, has 4 drops, 5 drops of anise, Pimpinellum anisum, and 3 drops oregano. And it can be taken daily. They don't give a framework for how long to use this. So, yep, but you could.
Yeah. Um, Next question.
I mean, I really don't know anybody, even, I mean, I take a lot of supplements, but there's inevitably I run out of them. It takes me a while to order them. I really don't know many people who do it every single day,
Yeah.
right? I mean, we talk a lot about it. Well, if you do it I'm like, if you do it every single day, you're like, very, pitta. It's like, you like have it all organized all the time. But there's inevitably going to be a pause. And I will say, oh, for those who are like, well, it's going to build up in the liver, it's going to cause toxicity. I have had a number of conversations with Annette, who is now the current president of NAHA. She has been for a number of years. So she has a dietary supplement company. That's where I get those Alpha Calm supplements I use. And I wish I could remember the name of her company. She said, and she has a clinic, she practices a French approach to aromatic medicine called endobiogeny. And so they use a fair amount of essential oils in their dietary supplements, and they can test like, oh, is there a buildup of the liver enzymes changed? And she shared with me in a few of our conversations that they just don't see that happening. It's I mean, I'm sure for some people who use essential oils excessively, we do we could see a shift in liver enzymes that could become problematic. But it's not, you know, just if you stay within that range of 1 to 3 drops, 1 to 3 times a day, even if you're doing it every single day, you should be okay. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
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 Next one, we did talk about it, but I think we're going to focus more on the second question. So we talked about how many drops at a time is appropriate. You just said it. Does it depend on the oil?
Well, usually when you're formulating, right, you're going to formulate some type of remedy. You would put less of something like oregano or cinnamon bark and more of the kind of non-irritating essential oils. So it's more about, combining them so that you reduce the potential for irritation in the gut or anywhere along the digestive tract, by complementing it with so oregano with lavender and coriander seed, you know, you put less of. If you were just making a single essential oil, I would say they can all pretty much be used in 1 to 3 drops. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
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 And of course, for those who are here, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. We're going to do a Q&A at the end because we're getting close to the end. And the next one is any advice or ending words on this subject?
Yes. So, I recommend any book by Kurt Schnaubelt, you know, because he really has a way of inspiring maybe different thinking from the traditional aromatherapy community. And so that is the first place one could begin to get a little bit of education on the internal use of essential oils. The others would be, you know, there's more than just us. I mean, we do offer an internal use of essential oil course. There's a few other schools who offer them, like the Franklin Institute offers a course on the internal use of essential oils. So that would be like the next step, to take a course, and because usually that course is also going to give you monographs on a number of essential oils and how they can be used internally. And then, you know, if you want to go into practice, like complement, like a herbal practice, or complement, you know, some type of professional practice, then go into that aromatic medicine where you're really becoming a lot more knowledgeable on anatomy and physiology, health imbalances, and different dosages you can take essential oils. Yeah. And how to do it, right? 2 weeks on, higher dosage. You know, there's all these different steps depending on the condition.
Mm-hmm. And do you have a favorite book from Kurt Schnaubelt?
Ooh, I like his most recent one. I should have gotten his book. Do you have the titles of his books?
No, I think I have the Healing Power of Essential. No,
The
that's not it.
healing, yeah.
Is it
Is it
Healing?
the healing power of essential oils? I think that is it.
I'm gonna look really quickly. I think I'm
That's
confusing
his
it
more
with.
recent one. And then another one is, yeah, it is. Or the healing intelligence.
That's right. Yeah, because the other one is Dr. Zelinsky.
Yeah. No, the healing intelligence of essential oils.
That's the one I have. Yeah.
Yeah. This is his last, you know, his last, this is the most recent one that he wrote, although it was published quite a number of years ago. And he offers various, you know, internal recipes. So great. And it's an affordable way to learn about it. Yeah. So,
Yeah. I like
yeah.
that. All right.
But for
Next.
sure, get to know your essential oils. Don't take an essential oil because someone tells you to, unless you've gone to them and they've done a proper consultation, you know, and formulated something for you. Yeah.
That's good advice.
Yeah.
Next one is, you talked about where people can learn a little bit more, but can you tell us a little bit more about our programs? Because I don't think all your programs talk about internal usage, but what are the programs that do, and what
Yeah.
program would be good for kind of which
Yeah.
people?
So this the name of my school is the School for Aromatic Studies. It's as I shared in the beginning, it's one of the first schools founded here in North America. We offer an internal use of essential oils course. It's a short program. It teaches you how to make gummies and medicine balls and cough syrup and cough drops. And then for those who really want to dive more deeply into the subject, we replaced our French aromatherapy approach, which was really a more allopathic approach to utilizing, so it was pathology based. And now we have aromatic medicine, and it's based more on Western herbal energetics. And I feel a little bit more holistic, but teaches you a little bit more in-depthly about internal use. So we offer two programs. One, basic, if you're, utilizing essential oils or selling essential oils or representing, or you're a wellness advocate, that's the place to begin, just to understand the very basic model of when, why, and how. Yeah.
Yeah. And then your aromatic medicine certificate, it's pretty intense. It's like, I
It's
think
super.
30 case studies, right?
Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
lot. It's a lot. 20 case
20. Oh, sorry.
studies. Yep. Yep.
20. And then it's like a level 3 program. So do you have to have your level 2 aromatherapy studies before entering?
We recommend it, but we don't require it. Just because some people really, like a herbalist, might want to take an aromatic medicine course, but not need to have like 1 and 2. So it
Okay.
depends on previous training and where you plan on going with what you're learning. Yeah,
Yeah. So if you want like a quick dip your feet in, we're looking at the smaller course, and then the larger one, the certificate's like the whole shebang.
correct.
And I
Yes.
believe I think your level 1 or level 2, you might even touch on internal usage slightly in some of the programs. Am I correct?
We mention it. I don't think we go into any type of depth in the foundation of the scholars. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-mm.
All right.
Yeah.
And last question. And again, I'll be putting the links down below of her school, to her blog, all that kind of stuff. The capsules that you're going to let me know about. But, oops, there we go. Where can people learn? Oh, no. Where can people find you in your content? What kind of, yeah, blogs,
So
courses, social media?
our web address is aromaticstudies.com. And we are on YouTube, although I'm very slow to put new videos up on there. And it's just aromatic studies. So YouTube and whatever the thing is, aromatic studies. We also have a pretty long, we actually have more videos right now on Vimeo. I believe our address there is aromatic studies as well. But on our main website, aromaticstudies.com, there's our blog, which has a lot of great articles, formulations. Yeah. Yeah. So,
Yeah, I'll link that all down below.
and
And I like, oh,
Instagram, I'm at aromatic studies.
okay, I will link that as well. I really like your blog. Sometimes when I want to like know your approach on certain topics, I'll look up like, pregnancy and then aromatic studies. So then
Yeah.
on Google it'll show up your blog, the right post.
Yeah. Thank
So
you.
we did get one comment or one question, and that would be, what are your thoughts on honey and hydrosol?
Ooh, yum. Yes. Because honey's water soluble, right? So you could do honey, you could have like a cup of, well, even with hydrosols, let's say I was doing an 8-ounce glass of water, I could put a quarter of that be lavender hydrosol, and the rest just spring water. And then I could add honey, So beautiful. It works well. And hydrosol sometimes too, like adding in a little bit of honey gives them that sweetness. Most
Mhm.
people like the sweet. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's
And that brings me to think of another question. I know that hydrosols, like distilling hydrosols versus distilling essential oils, is a different process slightly. And I think it's more important to be sterilized more thoroughly for hydrosols. I bought a hydrosol from a company that says do not use internally. Is this because it might be a safety issue with bacteria, or is this just a labeling
That's their
issue?
choice to label them that way. And of course, there could potentially be bacteria in the hydrosol if they didn't use a preservative, which in Europe, they're required to preserve them. So they are preserved, whereas in this country, they are not required to be preserved. If you want to confidently use the hydrosol and kind of get away from that there might be bacteria, you could just boil the hydrosol before you use it,
Really?
and then use the hydrosol. Yeah. But most distillers, especially artisan distillers, they're being mindful every step of the way of avoiding that issue, right? Like we filter ours through this very fine filtering, pad. We store them correctly. It's like we reduce the oxygen that's available to the water. So, usually an artisan distiller wants you to get this beautiful hydrosol that does not have bacteria in it, because when there's bacteria, you can see it in a hydrosol.
Okay.
So, so if there's existing bacteria that you can visually see, I would not then boil it and think it was safe to use, right? I
Yeah.
would probably not use it. I mean, maybe as a spray, but even then I'm like, oh, it has bacteria. I'd probably just throw it out. But one of the ways you could use it and feel more confident is to boil it. You're not going to lose any of its qualities. And then you have, something that you can confidently feel like doesn't have anything in there that could harm you. Yeah.
Wow. I wasn't expecting to learn so much today with you. But yeah, that's the end of the questions. So I want to thank you so much, Jade, for
Yeah,
coming and
thank
just
you.
sharing about essential oil usage internally, because we don't, it's so taboo in our community, and I don't think it should be. So
Yeah.
thank you for enlightening
I
us.
don't either. It's about
It's
relationship.
about
Remember, it's about
relationship.
think about it. Be in relationship with it. Yeah.
Yes, that's a perfect way to end it. So I will see you on the other side, Jade. And for the rest of you guys here, see you. You can watch the replay. And bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.